Hi everyone, Sean Humphreys here. Welcome to this edition of the Take Charge or Change podcast. In this edition of the podcast, we're going to talk about the 5 toxic habits you need to quit to be happier. Okay, what are these habits? Well, I'll talk about these habits in a minute. But let's talk about some background material of this presentation. And this comes from an article that I had the privilege of reading not too long ago. And I've got a link in the show notes of this presentation to the article. But the article basically talks about why productivity matters. We take it for granted, and yet productivity is a critical issue in our professional lives. So if you're trying to cultivate professional resilience, have the ability to have bounce back, to basically push through adversity and challenge, then productivity is part of the success equation for professionals. So why does it matter? In the article they talked about, people who are productive just enjoy life more, and that makes sense. We probably know people who have really mastered productivity. In other words, they seem to get things done, and yet they're not as stressed. They seem to have time for family time, recreational pursuits, giving back to their communities. And so they've obviously mastered something there. We'll talk about the habits that they've cultivated to be able to accomplish those kinds of things. The second thing is, if you're productive, you know how to get the right things done. And there's some preliminary work that we all need to do, some spade work, to understand and have clarity about what it is we need to do to be productive in our lives. And we'll minimize the regret factor. So when it comes to personal productivity, we don't want to go through the next year or look back 3 years from now and go, where did the time go? Why didn't I seize on the opportunities that were available to me, the relationships, the resources, the people that came into my life? And had I been ready to seize those opportunities, then productivity and the principles around personal productivity would have been very helpful for me. So let's talk a little bit about productivity and why it matters in the context of economic productivity, and I'll try to link that back to our personal lives. So in the article, they talk about a YouTube video that Ray Dalio put together. It's called How the Economic Machine Works. It's a great video, and I encourage you to take a look at it. The link to that video is in the show notes. And so when we look at personal productivity, it's interesting. In that video, it talks about, from an economic standpoint, the way that productivity increases, whether it's increasing skills, using technology more effectively. It's very incremental, and it just kind of keeps going up. But it's slow, and it's hard work. Now, in an economic context, we can kind of boost growth by doing a couple of things. One is we could push down interest rates. So central banks can push down interest rates, make money cheaper and more accessible. And through the use of credit or debt, we can sort of accelerate the rate of growth in the economy. Now, the problem with introducing debt is it creates economic cycles. So there's kind of this boom and then a bit of a recessionary cycle, then boom and then recessionary cycles. In our personal lives, ideally what you want to do is focus on strategies that will help you just to make incremental gains. It's about, the long game. In other words, there's a few habits that if you just do them every single day, they don't seem like a big deal. But when you look back over the next year or the next 5 years, they'll have a profound impact on your life. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about in this presentation. So why is being productive so hard? Because the reality is, if we were all productive, we'd all have much different life experiences. So, we often want to sort of, say there's winners and losers in the world, and it's because of economic disparity and social injustice and all those kinds of things. But when it comes right down to it, there's certain factors that make personal productivity, which ultimately leads to potentially more income and more well-being in our lives. There's certain things we need to be aware of and to be doing. So why is it so hard? The reality is we're all a little bit lazy. To be productive really implies a series of habits and ideas and activities that really lean in against our natural propensity to be lazy. We get comfortable, and particularly in our Western economies, there's a pervasive sense of entitlement that we need to fight against. And the reality is, once you get comfortable, there's no place around staying comfortable. If you sort of get to that place and you don't worry about your ability to sort of stay comfortable by increasing your productivity and your skills, you'll get overtaken, absolutely, for sure. So we need to fight this laziness that is there for us. Now, how do we fight the laziness? Well, it's this point here. we need to spend some time connecting to our purpose and our vision. Because it's our vision of the future, if it's compelling and exciting, that will create the energy to fight against our natural laziness. And it's hard work, yes, but it's worth it. So think about the vision, where you want to get to, and use that vision to really harness your energy today to begin doing the things you need to do to improve your personal productivity. So what's the secret? Well, the secret is don't try to copy what other successful people do. Instead, avoid what unsuccessful people do. So in this article, it talks about 5 things. So what are the 5 things to avoid? First of all, it's simple, but working too much. Make sure you build in margin. Now, this is not talking about those of you that are lazy and are not pursuing goals. But some of you are out there really working hard. You've got this 24/7 mentality, and you think that that's the way you'll be successful, but that won't be the way of getting success in your life. So assuming you're laser-like in your focus, you understand what it is to be more productive, you need to make sure you're building margin into your life, buffer into your life, renewal into your life, because that'll help you to tap into your energy and your creativity and your overall well-being. So don't just focus on the next week or month, focus on the next year, 3 years, 5 years. And if you build in margin and you don't work too much and look after yourself, your productivity will just slowly and incrementally improve. And you won't believe the progress that you've made when you look back 3 years or 5 years from today. Maybe you're worrying too much. So unproductive people worry too much. They catastrophize. They stew. And again, it's a simple thing, but when problems, issues, hurdles come up, maybe you'll stew and worry for a short period of time, but write those things down, develop a game plan, a plan of attack, and then start acting. The best antidote to worry is to act and to take action in the real world to overcome the issues that you're confronting. Third, being too hard on yourself. We make fun sometimes of people who are using internal mantras about their goals and accomplishments. But the reality is athletes, as an example, do that all the time. They have internal things they say to themselves to increase the probability of their success in life. We need to do the same thing because we're naturally wired somehow as human beings to take the negatives and the negative voices and the negative things that people have spoken into our lives and to just make them bigger than they are. So we browbeat ourselves internally, we make fun of ourselves, we call ourselves names, we just are really hard on ourselves. So you need to push that away and you need to remind yourself that you are incredible. You've got your own unique gifts and abilities. Don't be hard on yourself, don't browbeat yourself. Again, begin working towards those goals and nurture your internal voices to be affirming and to link them to that powerful vision that I talked about earlier. And neglecting your personal education. I mean, too many of us finish our high school or university and then we just gradually stop educating ourselves. In the world today, education is critical, whether it's going to workshops or reading books or going to training. You need to make sure that you're doing that on an ongoing basis, and particularly in a global economy, in an economy that is technologically wired, you need to constantly be re-educating yourself and making yourself value from a skills and then / a productivity standpoint. And then you need to embrace rules. A lot of us naturally unsuccessful people hate rules, and we come through our formative years. There's always somebody telling us what to do. We need to break free of that bad attitude because rules and structure are what will make us productive. And so you just look around. Anyone that's productive around you has embraced structure. And so it could be something. Here's an example. One of the things you may want to do is, am I building regular exercise in my life? Maybe I get up in good time in the morning. I get to bed in a good time. I build exercise, reflection, journaling, writing down my goals. The night before, I write down my top to-dos, the top 3 things I need to get done the night before. Just simple things. But if you just did those every single day, and you may not get them accomplished every day, but you had a direction, then embracing rules and structure will be invaluable as it relates to personal productivity. You're listening to this, you already know this, but sometimes we need to reinforce those ideas. We need to hear different voices. Maybe we need to be woken up a little bit because we get complacent, and hopefully maybe this particular presentation has helped in that regard. So I hope you enjoyed this edition of the Take Charge of Change podcast. To get more information and resources, don't hesitate to take a look at our website at www.takechargeofchange.com. And as well, you can reach out to us via email. You can see the contact information on the screen here. And if you're interested in boosting productivity in your own staff and teams, reach out to us. We'd enjoy a conversation to talk about maybe how we can structure programs to improve professional resilience and productivity within your teams. You take care.